Hello and welcome back to the video series where I provide the high-level overview of the Project Resource Manual published by the CSI or the Construction Specifications Institute. And today we are going to review Module 6, which is Bidding, Negotiating, Purchasing. So before we begin, let us look back and see what has already been done in the construction project. So we've gone through the schematic design, design development, and the construction documents phase. So now the construction document set is complete and ready to go out for bid. So what actually happens at the bidding phase? So what the owner needs to do is they need to examine the procurement documents, then they need to understand what terms and conditions will affect the work, and then they provide all the information, and then the contractors come and bid for the project. So as far as the pricing methods, there are a few ways to do that. So one, as you know, is the stipulated sum or lump sum. That is just the cost of the work, the contractor's overhead and profit. Then the cost plus fee, and sometimes with the guaranteed maximum price or GMP, that is a stipulated sum, and then the percentage of the cost of the work, and that is not to exceed the amount of money that has been allocated for that or the guaranteed maximum price. Then time and material with an estimate of probable cost. So that's the alternative to a cost plus with the GMP. So then there is a unit price as well. So when the work is known at the beginning of the project, but the exact amount or limits or extent of the work is not known. For example, you don't know how many cubic yards you're going to excavate when you perform the earthwork. So that is another pricing method. Purchasing. So the owner has the right to purchase goods and services directly, and they procure goods at the most competitive prices. So that is something that they can do without placing those requirements out for bid. So as far as the project funding, the public owners may select contractors for small project from a qualified contractor listing, not necessarily always publicly bid if it's a smaller project. But usually state, local, and federal projects, they must go through the competitive bidding just because they want to be fair and they want to give a fair opportunity for all the contractors to bid. Pricing considerations. So what is important to know here? We need to understand that in preparing a price, the following categories are considered: the construction costs, and we're going to go through what is actually included in the construction cost a little later in this video. Then contingency, contractor's overhead, and then profit. So what is included in the construction costs? But before we do that, let's see what is not included. The acquisition of land is not included in the construction cost. That's separate. That's the owner's expenses. They go through the acquisition before they commence the project, before they decided to hire the architect to work on the construction documents. So that is separate. That is not included anywhere. Then all the geotechnical and survey information, that's separate from others because that is provided by the owner, and they need to pay for that and not to include in any type of construction expenses. And also some legal fees if the owner wish to get in touch with the lawyer so that they can advise them on like the liquidity of the deal and like if it's going to be profitable or not. So if they consulted with any type of specialist, that is not going to be included in the construction cost. So what is included in the construction costs? Well, first of all, labor and personnel costs, wages or salaries, and associated benefits for workers, on-site supervisors or admin personnel, and travel expenses. Then subcontractors costs, then products, including cost of the products incorporated into the work, excess products allowed for unsalvageable waste, maintenance materials for the owner's use in maintaining the project during the facility management stage, cost of transportation, storage, handling, and special insurance or bonds associated with the products. Then allowances are included as well, mock-ups and sample panels not incorporated in the work. Then tools and equipment specially required for and consumed or depreciated in executing the work, rental charges for tools and equipment, fuel for operations, safety and security procedures, and personnel such as gates and any type of like connects or any other things. And if there is a special training required for the work, that is included in the construction cost as well. Temporary facilities and controls, including field offices, temporary heat and light, signage, safety provisions, environmental protection, and other items consumed but not incorporated into the work. Then waste removal is included, administrative costs attributable to the work, such as document reproduction and distribution, payroll, data processing, telephone and internet charges, fax, postal and delivery services, and other site-related office expenditures. Submittals, shop drawing samples, QA, QC submittals, all those things. Then contract closeout costs, if there is any type of operations and maintenance manuals or record documents or just demonstration and training, maintenance agreements, warranties, bonds, and final cleaning. So that is all included in the construction cost. Then fees for permits, inspections, approvals by authorities having jurisdiction or HJ. Also field engineering and testing. So whatever testing needs to be performed during the construction, the cost of that is included in the construction cost. Project coordination or project management. So if there is some separate contractors and the coordination with them is required, then that is going to be included there. Then coordination drawings, then owner furnished products and services, scheduling services, progress documentation such as photographs. So that is included there too. Project phasing costs such as mobilization, startup costs, including transportation, installation, maintenance, removal of temporary facilities, protection, and control between stages of extended projects. Then costs related to site restrictions, including off-site storage and parking expenses, royalties, licenses, and fees for use of potential design of or products, delegated design costs for engineering of products based on performance criteria, insurance and bonds, all applicable taxes. And also there are deductions for like cash discounts and rebates from manufacturers and suppliers, or like salvage value or of waste, or shared savings if there is any. Then contingency, that is an important part of it as well. And contingency is the summary risk factor for contractor perceives in the project arising from like incomplete documents. If there is the like estimated sum is not real, then errors made in pricing, then any types of costs related to dispute or like legal fees and claims, any type of like penalties or like default by a subcontractor or supplier, resident delays and monetary losses. So contractor need to actually allocate some money for those force majeure conditions. The contractor's overhead is included there too. So licensing, salaries, wages, benefits, like office expenses, equipment that is leased or rented, and office supplies. So everything around those lines. Then profit. Profit needs to be included too. So the contractor needs to have some margin, and usually it is included in the invoice, and they don't really break it down. So when we talk about value analysis, usually it helps the owner to decrease the price, and it happens during this stage, during bidding and negotiating. So there are different types of pricing for different types of project delivery methods, such as design, bid, build, and design, negotiate, build, design, build, construction management, and then a completely separate for the owner build projects. So as far as the project information, what actually needs to be included in the project? So the owner needs to include and support the owner's disclosure and privacy policies related to the project, because especially if it's a federal project, no information needs to leak. Then the owner needs to establish which reporting and document distribution services will be used, then provide a system of QA/QC, provide supplementary project information in a timely manner to participants, ensure the integrity of project information by exchanging it in secure forms, and ensure that the oral inquiries and information are documented, and sometimes that can be an issue. So for the bidding, the general considerations are as follows. Usually the bidding participants are the owner together with the architect, because the architect assists the owner in the bidding process, and then the prospective contractors or prospective subcontractors and suppliers, depending on the project. So the document, AIA document A305, or contractor's qualification statement, is sent out, and the important qualification criteria for prospective contractors include experience, special training and certification or licensing, personnel, specialized equipment, financial stability, and history of claims and disputes. So that is something that the owner uses to qualify the contractors. Then when that is sent out, what actually happens after that? After that, the bidding activities during this phase include bid solicitation, then distribution of procurement documents. Then if there is a need, there is a pre-bid meeting or a conference to inform all the bidders about the procurement and all the requirements. Then request for interpretation from the owner or bidders, if any, substitution requests, if any, responses to requests for interpretations, then addenda. So addenda is a document that is published after the conference, but before the bidding is closed. So all the bidders can see the responses to potential questions of other bidders. And instead of just going back to each of the bidders who asked the question, the architect publishes the addenda where they answer the questions that for example, if something was unclear from the drawings or from the specifications, they publish a separate document. Then pricing procedures, preparation of bids and supplements, submittal, then the bid opening happens, then the owner evaluates the bids, then the bid tabulation happens, value analysis if there is a need, if the bid exceeds the established project budget, then a notification and the award of the contracts. And we are going to go through all of them. So it's important to understand that establishing a bidding period is very important, and all the project participants, all the contractors need to submit the bid by the deadline. And back in the day, it was in person, so people were bringing the documents to the building department or any authority having jurisdiction and submitting that by, say, 11 a.m. on a certain day. And just saying, oh, I was stuck in traffic and that's why I arrived like at 11:05, please accept my documentation. No, that is not going to happen. The rules are the same for everyone, for all the participants, so that's why it is fair. And now, for the most part, the submission is electronic. So the set of documents is accepted online, and the prospective bidders receive a notification that their package has been accepted, and there is a timestamp, so that is fair. So when we talk about preparing the bids, so usually the ample amount of time is given for the contractors to prepare that. But if there is anything that the bidders may require during that, they can submit the questions, and like I mentioned before, the architect will issue an addenda, so that will kind of like give explanation to all the participants. Then when the bids are accepted, then the evaluating of the bids happens. And usually that is the owner with the assistance of the architect. And they check a few things. So the review includes if the bid submission was timely, in a timely manner. So the timeliness is checked. If everything is on time, okay, so check. Then completeness, if everything what was requested is fulfilled by the prospective bidder. So if they responded to all the bid questions and submitted all the supporting documentation, that the bid is complete. Then if there is a variance from the construction budget, so except in unusual economic circumstances, the bids should be close to the established construction budget. And if the bids exceed, then the owner will have a few options: either ask the architect to redesign the whole project or some portions of the project, or they can walk away from the project. That's the owner's right too. They can do that, and they can do that just for convenience. They can postpone the bidding. They can completely just freeze the project, or they just will no longer pursue the project. Then if there are any bidding irregularities, then that needs to be reviewed as well. And if there is any type of absence of required bid forms, or absence of bid security, or incorrect form or amount of bid security, so, or like exclusion of work or limitations of bid. So like everything needs to be evaluated during this process. And then when everything is done, then the bid is evaluated, and then the award of the bid is happening. But before that, there may be some negotiating as well. And that is like it always happens in every project. So like some value engineering, trying to understand like where the owner can save up some money, or where the subcontractors can propose something else. So that always happens during this phase. So let's take a look at the characteristics of the public projects. So usually there are three levels of that, which is local, state, and federal. And local include like villages, parishes, townships, cities, counties. Then the state level is like Department of Education, Department of Transportation, utilities, or like administrative services. And the federal level includes the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, Veterans Affairs, or Department of Transportation, or the Department of the Interior, or Housing and Urban Development. So those authorities are usually procuring the projects on the federal level. So for the procurement documents, usually just because the public bidding process is open to a greater number of bidding participants than private bidding, the owner requires information to be submitted with the bids to ensure the public's interests are not compromised. So anything such as statement of qualifications, tax liability status, proof of insurance, bid security, non-collision affidavit, minority and disadvantaged business participation, and acknowledgements. So, and actually the previous one is very important for the public projects. So, for example, some of the projects, and like that's the main and additional considerations of the public project. So they require the contractors to provide and disclose the wages, the prevailing wage. And there is a Davis-Bacon Act that actually controls that. Then the percentage of the bidder's own labor that is provided. Then the minority business enterprise or disadvantaged business enterprise, MBE or DBE. So that is the requirement too. The contractor needs to show that a certain percentage of the minority or females were employed to perform this project. Then environmental requirements. Usually there are some restrictions in some states, and that is something that is strictly observed in some states, and it's not as strict in other states. But since the climate change is an issue now, so I think that's going to be showing more and more in the federal projects. Then if there are any liquidated damages, then that will be considered here too. And if there are any types of incentives, sometimes there are like monetary incentives for early completion of a project. So that is something that will be included there too. Private bidding process is different from the federal one. It's easier. Sometimes the owner does not have to go out publicly, and they don't even need to publish the results of the bidding. So sometimes it's just, like a very close group of contractors, and they choose between like 2 and 3 contractors. So that is a little different. So when we talk about the negotiating, so that usually happens if a contract can be awarded without a formal bidding process or in a private sector construction. Then the owner and contractor have established a level of trust that makes competitive bidding unnecessary. So it's just a negotiating, it's like a meeting or two where people sit down and discuss all the terms and conditions, and then they agree, and then they sign a contract. Or like if the contractor meets the owner's requirements for skill, timing, and cost, and they just, or they have a history of working with that contractor in the past and that was successful. So they have that right to do that. So procurement documents, they may include an RFP, which is a request for proposal, then drawings and specs, and then offer forms and supplements. So we've gone through all of them before, so that is something that is included in the procurement. So subcontractors, unless it's a very small project, like kitchen remodeling by just one contractor, there will always be contractors and subcontractors and suppliers, and they go through a similar process with the general contractor or with the construction management company. So they need to be qualified, they need to go through procurement and have negotiations, and then a few different stages, like when the contract is already awarded, like such as pre-mobilization, then the prep meeting, then they, mobilize and they go and start working on the site. So when we talk about the bid shopping, that is the practice of revealing the sub-bid of the subcontractor to obtain a lower price from another subcontractor. It occurs during the bidding process and following award of a prime contract, or both. So that's something to consider as well, something to account. So then when the contract is awarded and the architect or like an architectural and engineering firm often assists the owner in preparing the owner contractor agreement, then the owner's legal advisor or lawyer or legal counsel should examine all the agreements carefully, just because there could be some potential issues. So that is an important point. Although the architect helps, but the owner should employ their own legal advisor just to be on the safe side. Then if the owner would like to purchase the goods by themselves without including that into the contract, they may as well do so. So they can procure the desired equipment or some supplies, materials, or furniture, or some special services that are necessary for completing the project, and then they will communicate and they will say, okay, so here's what we got, this is what we're going to be using in the project, and make sure the project facility is accommodated, is equipped for that. They can receive that, they can install that, and everything is coordinated. So when we talk about the documents, so the RFP is like an invitation to bid, invites a prospective seller to submit a proposal to furnish a defined quantity of specified goods or services. Then procurement documents, they include drawings, specs, procurement requirements describing the quantity and extent of goods required, then procurement forms and supplements, and then the contract or purchase order issued by the buyer in lieu of a construction contract. So when we talk about the process, the steps required in securing a purchasing agreement include issuing an RFP, then visiting the point of destination or goods, or the point of performance of special services, then performing pricing procedures, submitting a bid, and then evaluation of prices. And when we talk about delivery and distribution, the many factors can affect the product's delivery and distribution. And some of these factors might in turn affect the payment. So that is something that the contractors and the owner should think about, and they include lead times if there is like a longer production time that is required for like a custom-made product, or if there is a discrepancy in supply and demand, or the labor disputes and strikes occur, that happens too, or there is some inclement weather that prevents from the goods to be delivered at the site, like if there's like a snow blizzard or something like that is not safe for anybody, and the site will be closed, or the hurricane or any other type of natural disaster. Then special handling considerations, and if there is any like geographic influence or coordination with adjacent materials, like if there is already material supply on site and there is no room to put the new one, so that needs to be coordinated as well. And then if there are any damages during shipping and packaging and handling, so that will actually make the delivery and installation time longer, and that will have to be considered and incorporated into the project schedule. So the role of the product representative or the sales rep, sometimes they can help a lot. So people should always consider just talking to them, because they know their product like nobody else. They know everything about it, and it's always good to just have a reliable sales rep to be in touch throughout the project. So not just for the procurement, but also when the submittals come, and then when the products and materials are delivered to the site. So that's always good to have somebody to communicate to, like an assigned sales rep. So agreements. Agreements is a form of contract that is used for project. There are different types of agreements, and standard forms of agreements provided by the AIA or the American Institute of Architects, or DBIA, Design Build Institute of America, or AGC, American General Contractors. So depending on the project, depending on the owner and the project delivery method, the parties are free to choose any type of documentation that has been historically used or is just suitable for the project needs. So additional information. For additional information on competitive bidding procedures and for recommendations specific to the appropriate set of documents, you may as well look at the AIA document A501, and that is the recommended guide for competitive bidding procedures and contract awards for building construction. And that concludes our review of this chapter of Module 6, and I look forward to seeing you in Module 7. Thank you for watching.